DC is canceling Doomed and Omega Men, which I'd actually heard good things about, so that's a little bit bummer.
Right. I'm trade waiting on Omega Men.
Yeah.
Was intending to read Omega Men. I guess I'm part of the problem.
The big news for me, though, is that Catwoman is getting a new creative team. And that's horrible timing because you're finally getting into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the same time, I suppose if it's got to go to a new creative team, this is probably a good time to do it as she's coming out of this mafia thing. It is a bit of a bummer because I would like to see what this team does with her post-mafia situation.
And I think we still have to like December or something like that. So.
Right.
But yeah, it'll probably realistically barely touch on that. Real bummer for me is that just the whole thing is about bringing back continuity and stuff like that. And I feel like when she's written into continuity like that is always terrible. Mm-hmm. I can't really think of a series where there was a lot of crossover events and stuff like that in Catwoman that has been any good at all. So I'm really bummed about that.
Yeah.
She's not a team player.
Right.
And the only way to make her into a team player is to just cheapen everything.
Right, and dilute the character.
Mm.
I suppose that being said, there's always the possibility that the people who take over could take her and do something interesting that we didn't expect, you know?
I hope they do. I hope it's like when they announced Heath Ledger was playing the Joker. I mean, everybody was super pissed about that, and we got the best movie portrayal of it to date, so there you go. But I'm nervous, man. For me, this is really the one creative team that I think has done it right since Brubaker, who ended in like the early 2000s. So this is like 10 years of like shit just waiting for this, and then it's here. And then it gets taken away by probably Jeff Johns.
Right.
This is probably his doing. This seems like something he would do.
Let's blame him anyway.
Yeah.
I don't like him, so that's his fault.
He's like the creative director or whatever of DC.
He is. He's the big kahuna guy who makes these sort of choices, or at least has a big hand in it, from my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Just the whole thing reeks of him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
We need to get back to continuity and tropes. Right. Serious.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think this bodes for DC? I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but...
Okay, let's forget about the Golden Age, because that's just different. When in history do you think DC was the strongest?
From like a critical viewpoint, or for sales? Because those are two different things.
I would say both. In my opinion, the one that I'm thinking of. But why don't you go into
I'm sure what you're thinking of is probably the same thing. For me, the DC that I love is like late 80s.
Yeah.
Right, when we had Grant Morrison and Alan Moore and O'Neill and all these guys doing really interesting, quirky, off-center kind of stuff.
The mature readers titles is basically what it comes down to.
Right.
That stuff just prior to Vertigo. DC was doing great then. Probably their best in recent history, and that's not even like
they were a juggernaut at the time.
Right, they were unstoppable. So that being said, them trying to fix the problem by going more in the direction of their 90s shit is just fucking absurd.
It is absurd. But I think their thought here is they're not going to out-image Image.
But they're trying to out-Marvel.
Well, and they're not even going to out-Marvel. Because Marvel is working its way towards being more diverse. It's got, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and Miss Marvel and Dinosaur Girl or whatever the hell that is. And it's got all these sort of strange titles. And Doctor Strange. And they're really doing this all-new Marvel thing and resorting everything out and breaking continuity up and playing around with ideas. And I feel like DC is thinking, well, let's just do, Superman, Batman, these archetypal characters. Let's put them all into a heavy continuity and give people an alternative. But I just don't know.
They've never been the best team publisher, like Team Books. Never.
Right.
It's never been their thing.
Well, they did have Justice League in the 90s. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, for a while.
The JLA or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a long run, like 80, wasn't that like mostly Morrison that did that? It was pretty cool. I think that's what they want to go back to is this very iconic characters.
Yeah, and I understand it because it's like they think, well, if somebody's going to read this, then they're going to have to read this, and that just equals dollar bills for us, but that's stupid, and it's a cheap way to go about it.
Yeah.
Like, they should focus more on putting out quality content that stands on its own than trying to incorporate everything regardless of how good it is. That's how Convergence felt to me. It's like, let's just throw a bunch of shit out there and make it connected somehow. And it just came off as weird and lame, and nobody liked Convergence. Or not Convergence. Yeah, Convergence, that's the right one.
Whatever, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of the event stuff and crossovers.
It's super lame.
I'm the guy that doesn't read those.
Yeah.
Secret Wars, don't care. Crisis, don't care. Just...
I don't think I own a Justice League or Avengers book.
Right. Brightest Day, Blackest Night, none of that crap. I've never cared for any of that stuff. I do like team books. I've liked some Justice League stuff. I've liked some Avengers and New Avengers stuff.
I'm sure there's good stuff out there. It's just everything that I've been exposed to, which is probably limited. It's just not for me.
Sure.
DC for me has always been about people that stand on their own and trying to put them together and still do justice to that concept and that way of writing is just not, it doesn't fit together.
Right, and even just beyond the continuity thing, this idea of a return to classic ideals of these characters is just so boring. I just don't care. I don't want to read Superman as Superman again. I don't want to read classic Batman. There's 40 or 50 years of these characters or more depending on which one. Especially with DC, their characters are so old. Going back to what they already were just seems pointless to me. I don't understand the draw or if they think they're going to pull in new readers somehow with this. I doubt it. I feel like they're just clawing away trying to figure out some way out of their little dark hole that they've created.
But that being said, well, kind of going back to they can't out-image image, they do have sort of a differentiating factor in that they have these really well-established characters. So if a mature readers only Batman title came out and Green Arrow title came out and like another question came out, it'd be a huge fucking deal. And like those 14-year-olds that they're trying to sell these team books would eat that shit up.
Right.
I mean, that's what's cool when you're the age that they're trying to target is getting shit that you're not supposed to have.
Right.
So why are they trying to give them shit that they're supposed to have? Stuff that they can pass on to their dad, and
I think ultimately the problem is that the people who run DC are no longer within the same demographic as readership. Readership has diversified a lot over the years with comics. It's no longer, Jeff Johns type guys. It's just not, comic books are not dominated by a readership looking for these tropes and white guys in tights. It's just not what people are wanting to read anymore. And I feel like instead of getting rid of and cleaning house all this editorial staff and all of these staff writers who are just that, they just try to keep reinventing the wheel with these same guys who just aren't in touch with the readership. There is no demographic for these dudes until they get rid of all of these guys that are coming down from above and saying, do this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think it's the writer's problem. I think it's probably they're given such a narrow box of what to work within and, all these guidelines for, things that are acceptable and whatnot that they just have to write the shit that they do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too too heavy-handed, it seems to me. But it's a layman view of it from the outside. Who knows what's really going on inside? But man, that's how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I don't know the inner workings and the whole story and stuff like that. But for me, drifting farther away from the few titles that held some of like the late 80s power and replacing them with like some early 90s tropes and shit is the opposite of what anybody would do in that situation, I feel. I don't know. People just think about the good old days, and the good old days for them were awful for the rest of us, unfortunately.
Right, it was the days that they were doing well.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for us.
Yeah.
If you have any thoughts about the whole DC thing and anything we talked about, I'd love to hear some of your other opinions. We've been getting some great comments lately from some people. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
We try to engage and talk to you guys about that stuff down there below. So comment what you think about all this. Other than that, go ahead and like, subscribe if you haven't.